in your yard. And he grinning while you saying grace, shaking up the tail in people's face. Where the devil day, where the devil day, look the devil day. To fool people's eyes, devil does disguise, but it's no problem to recognize them. Some like to deck in suit whole day and rock their neck and validate. You're afraid the devil, you're afraid him bad. Well, look the devil right in your yard, and he grinning while you saying grace, shaking up the tail in people's face. Where the devil day, where the devil day, look the devil day. Hey. It has some devil with gone and Bible who praise their Savior, but fuss their neighbor. Another kind, she kicks and blows, hiding behind some police clothes. You're afraid the devil, you're afraid him bad. Well, look the devil right in your yard, and he grinning while you saying grace, shaking up the tail in people's face. Where the devil day, where the devil day, look the devil day.
frustrating the boys and girls. You don't have to be a capitalist to be on the wanted list. The operation is rather tight, and the mugging black is white. 100 million missing in PCO. Who keep we money we want to know? That's a bandit. Look the bandit. A police constable who should have more seriously. He 15,000 in CID. That's a bandit. Look the bandit. Last week I'm making marketing tongue. As I put on my basket, it's gone, it's gone. That's a bandit. Look the bandit. Well, looky there, looky there, looky there, looky there, looky there. Hold him, don't let him get away. Boy, boy, boy. Hi, hi, hi. Boy, boy, boy. Hi, hi, hi. They say crime rate is high. This you must not deny. Well, don't talk about bank robberies, pickpocketers, and motor car thieves. Well, you took gallery and with watch, diamond rings and gold chains. Well, if you get touched, through the law you must not complain. If an ram about his waist, it only breaking down all over the place. That's a bandit. Look the bandit. A magistrate make history. He gets 17 years jail in this country. That's the bandit. Look the bandit. So if you wanna lead a have a grouse, and when he step out you search the house. That's the bandit. Look the bandit. Well, looky there, looky there, looky there, looky there, looky there. Jail him, don't let him get away. Boy, boy, boy. Hi, hi, hi. Boy, boy, boy. Hi, hi, hi. It have bandits here. It have bandits everywhere. Man, I sure you get detour. Every day it's a crime in New York. It have bandism in government. It have bandism in parliament. And don't judge me wrong. See them walking bout and gone. I hear how they break the weed. They teach the US but leave the TT. That's a bandit. Look the bandit. When your husband was walking was calm and jam. As they retrench him, you're only man. That's a bandit. Look the bandit. And when they can't get the things they want, they lock you inside a master trunk. That's a bandit. Look the bandit. Well, looky there, looky there, looky there, looky there, looky there. Hold him, don't let him get away. Boy, boy, boy. Hi, hi, hi. Boy, boy, boy. Hi, hi, hi.
Yes, indeed. A pleasant good night to all and sundry. Yes, indeed. We must get rid of all of the bandits. The bandits are no damn good for Trinidad and Tobago. And the bandits in high places is the most dangerous, as we have been witnessing over the last 9 years so far. And we still have a year to go. But we are going to, of course, be steadfast in terms of our position and in terms of making certain that we redeem our democracy. Yes, indeed, of course, a pleasant good night to all and sundry. East, West, North, Central. The throat a little sore, but I will make it. Of course, you know, 2 programs a day. Plus, of course, the numerous, what I consider to be engagements that I would normally have, certainly would take a toll. But, of course, commitment and dedication is something that cannot be bought or cannot be sacrificed. And therefore, it is, of course, a love of duty and responsibility that, of course, will cause one to, of course, continue in spite of the what I consider to be physical impediment that may lead, of course, to some kind of medical issue. But until such time comes, because we have seen, of course, the situation with Andy on the ground report, and we have been able, of course, to manage that in the best way we can. But certainly, it is not, of course, a competent situation as far as that is concerned, because not only one member of the team is, of course, this, should I say, temporarily discommoded, but at the same time, the strength of the team is always compensated for by the commitment and dedication of the rest of the team. Something, of course, like the body. If, of course, you lose the sense of sight, then, of course, the sense of hearing and smell and taste, of course, replaces it and, of course, heightens. And, of course, vice versa is the case. If you lose the sense of hearing, then, of course, the sight and ears, the sight, of course, nose, and, of course, the olfactory factor, and then, of course, taste as well becomes, of course, the major, should I say, senses, so as to, of course, determine one's environment, because you must know what is happening around you, if only to eat and, of course, avoid danger, because that is fundamentally what all living things live for, to, of course, apart from reprocreating or procreating, they, of course, live to avoid danger and to, of course, seek food so as to maintain their species. But that is enough philosophizing and, of course, biology. Let's get down to the matter tonight. You see, the UNC is now engaged in a crime meeting up at La Jolla, St. Joseph. Well, I think we should also engage as well. Because, of course, I had planned to be there physically, but I realized that I would get back here too late, having regard, of course, to so many other people would have had to make presentations, etc. So it would not have been, should I say, an optimum use of my time. So what I propose to do is to do a crime session tonight, package it, and, of course, send it to the UNC, along with, of course, the multiple documents, over 1,000 pages of document that has been, of course, organized over the years to address the question of crime and criminality in particular, but, of course, to ameliorate and to improve the socio-economic and cultural conditions of that particular area called Laventille and environment, because I am convinced that if you solve the Laventille question, you solve crime and criminality in a large measure. I am talking here specifically about blue-collar crime. Let us not get carried away. I'm talking about blue-collar crime. So whether it's murder, those crimes that are committed by, of course, trespassing or disrespecting the person, the body, and, of course, people's property, whether it be money or it be, of course, home invasion, as is the phenomenon today. So it has a very disquieting and very significant, of course, impact on the human psyche. And while, of course, those who are engaged in white-collar crime, because they use the pen and they use, of course, paper, if you want to call that, or electronically, for me, they are the worst of all the bandits. But because it does not include physical harm, but I can tell you the repercussions, fuels, and, of course, spawn physical harm. And that is the area of concern that the entire society will have and must have, because it means that people's lives are in danger. And what is the sense? You are looking to develop yourself. What's the sense? You're looking, of course, to study hard. What is the sense? You're looking to work hard. What's the sense? You're looking, of course, to develop a business. What's the sense? You're looking, of course, to engage in all of the elements of an ambition to, of course, be part and parcel of a particular profession, whether it be doctor, nurse, legal, etc. So, teacher, and all of the other professions, whether you want to be a pilot and so on. What's the sense? If you believe that your life could be snuffed out at a moment's notice. So that is why the physical crime, the blue-collar crime, is the focus. And of course, in poor communities, that is the major crime that are committed against the person and against property, as we have seen, of course, with drive-by shootings and killings, with, of course, apart from home invasions, sexual heinous acts, mainly, of course, to not just intimidate, but to petrify the victims so they will not, of course, cooperate with law enforcement so as to do what is required for such heinous, dastard, inhumane, and barbaric acts that are committed in the execution of course, these crimes against the property and in the process against the person, as they rape and they malign and they bugger while taking, of course, of people's property. It is a horrendous, it is, of course, a unsettling, it is a psychologically debilitating situation. But I say to you, there are solutions. And I say to you as well, as I said last night, there have been initiatives that were taken. And I'm saying that if those initiatives were not taken then, the situation would have been worse today. Yes, indeed. And imagine you had to wait until Rowley and his bunch of what I consider to be ignoramus to come into office, to have it, of course, full-blown, like, of course, a bout of AIDS, or indeed a new strain of the devious called Corona. Now, just imagine that. Over 500 murders, one can safely say, were avoided when, of course, persons like myself, Archbishop Barbara Gray Burke, Listra Penny, Gad Christopher, and of course, so many others, too numerous to mention, including, of course, Michael Morgan in Eastport of Spain there. And of course, we have Ronald Timothy and others who have been, of course, taking their own time and their own limited financial resources to develop programs to attract the attention of those young people who would have otherwise not only not have that opportunity that they would have presented within the community and to the convenience of the community and to the convenience of those who would participate, including, of course, the parents and, of course, the wider community and the involvement of the leaders, whether or not they are considered to be viable or considered to be persons with whom you want to associate. But the communities of which I speak, they have influence. The current Minister of National Security, Hines, said so in Bad Street when he was talking, of course, to and lauding one of the gang leaders. He was lauding, he was showering praise and calling them leaders and say that we need to communicate and work with you. That is what the Minister of National Security was saying in, of course, Bad Street, one of the major hotspots and the ground zero for, of course, these drive-by shootings and, of course, what I consider to be retributory killings. I talked about Sunday, yes. We're going to deal with that aspect of it on another occasion. What we're looking for tonight is solutions, because the UNC has their forum and we need, of course, to simultaneously demonstrate that there are solutions. I want to start one time by telling you all what I would have said tonight by way of solutions have been tested, except for one or two that I will identify. We have, of course, identified the fact that parents are less able to, of course, manage their children and have a reign on them. We accept that as a fact because of bad influences. But let's go straight to the lines first. Professor, good night.
Hello, good night, Lennox.
Good night to you.
Lennox, it have this threat out. Some gang have a threat out that they will be targeting judges, corrupt police officers, etc., etc. So
Yes.
these people get frightened today. And Dancy had earlier, well, you know them high police up on top.
Yes.
They send men on the St. Paul today. I don't know if you know anything about what passed on the St. Paul today.
The information came straight to me.
Well,
yes.
I watched the video.
Yes.
And I can understand how they could run in so and just arrest people, especially the young women. You know how the young women just
Yes.
get on when the man gets arrested, they just run up, and some of them will use obscene and so. And they're grabbing these young women. You know, I don't know who they're trying to impress.
And that has been done
who they want to
before.
impress with that kind of stupidness?
But that
You
has
going
been
up
done
place
before.
just so.
That has been done before.
What is-
More of the same.
Yeah.
And it
Yeah.
has not. It has.
But
it has
then
got
one
worse.
time just so. You
Go ahead,
see,
my
it's
good.
due to this threat. They get scared one time and they act. But sometimes when they do these things, it will have a little one or two warrant, and other fellas will get arrested. Them men have no warrant. It's like they go just so and pick up who they feel to pick up to impress people in this society. Well, I know it ain't impressing me and others because we bright, we know better.
Of course.
Them went and kidnap people. That's kidnap. It have a thing called human rights. Never mind the people bad in certain areas. You just mentioned Bad Street and thing.
Yes.
Up in Observatory Street all by this, so in the Harp and thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Them is hot place.
That's right.
Eleanor.
Yes, that's the street. All of them in close
You had to say
proximity to each
East
other.
Port of Spain, East Port of Spain and thing, right? You can't do that. I dare and pressing people, you know, only them stupid naive people will say, yeah, hold them, this, that. When you do so, taxpayers have to pay because it have them people they ain't done, you know, they will sue the state, more
That's
problem
right.
again.
That's right. That's right.
Don't
With the
see
very
head set up
contracts,
people.
with the very contracts
Yeah,
they were able to
Lennox.
manipulate it to get the funds to keep a retainer of a lawyer.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. Okay then, Lennox.
Yes,
Thanks
yes,
for
indeed.
listening.
Yes. No problem, no problem. Tonight, of course, we know that knee-jerk response was coming. We knew that. We know that, of course, it is, of course, a reactive rather than a proactive positioning. We know that they are going to engage in brute force. And, of course, it's a show of strength. We know that. But what about the prophylactic, the preventive aspect of it? That is what we'll focus tonight. Professor, good night. That's a good night.
I want to remind the Prime Minister when he was opposition leader, he said when a government can't get the hand on crime to get out of office.
That's right. Remind him.
So why he don't get out after 9 years? He said that.
That's right.
Right? So what? Look at we country now. Look at the country. Only blood in the road running. Yeah.
Yes, indeed. And tonight, of course, you will learn several things. You will learn that, one, that the same thing you learned tonight, Rowley has a copy of. Twice he was given it. 1,000 pages of initiatives tried and tested in the main. And to step out the box and understand that what you are doing is nonsense. And it's only a madman does the same thing over and over and expect a different result, you damn asses. Yes, indeed. You will learn tonight that we had recommended, of course, parental responsibility legislation if you want to have a legislative agenda. Not more no bail, not more anti-crime legislation. As I told Hines when I met him sometime in Royal Bank, he said that of course the anti-gang law was good law. Well, in my mind, I can't tell him that because I don't think we have reached that level. But when I go up in his ears, I will tell him how we mother make him. But of course, I did tell him that the Anti-Gang Act is a waste of time. And I gave him a scenario, but they do things because, as one of the caller rightly said, because it sounds good. And it gives the impression that they are prepared to do something. But that thing they are doing is pie in the sky, and of course is an exercise in futility. I told him in non-certain terms that, let's take, for example, Nelson Street. You can't want a better example than Nelson Street to demonstrate how stupid the Anti-Gang Act is. And I told him, I said that if you're living in a high-rise apartment block, as is the case on George Street and, of course, Nelson Street and Duncan Street and Mango Rose and, of course, in the Harp, and we can go on and on, Bath Street, etc. And young men growing up together, one living above and the other one, of course, beneath. But they will go to the same schools normally. They will also be friends. But because there is a common playing area, when they come downstairs on the ground floor, the courtyard will be, of course, their stomping ground as far as playing together, fraternizing together, liming together, and, of course, riding bicycle, as the case may be, but, of course, generating the bond. That is my friend, as far as they're concerned, and vice versa. And when they finish, of course, the one that is living further up than the one that is living below, they go to their respective homes. But when they get, of course, to 15, 16, they continue, of course, to be friends, and they play in that common space. Oh, gosh, common sense will tell you that. Rowley, common sense will tell you that, Hines. Anti-gang is not the thing, and you cannot blame anybody for your stupidity and your incompetence. The UNC is correct. Don't support that nonsense. That's waste of time. And so, for example, let's look at the implementation of the act itself. When the act says that if you are caught with a gang leader, or you are influenced by a gang leader, you can be, of course, charged and, of course, be treated with the most long-term, including, of course, no bail scenarios. Well, if both of them are living there, and I'm only giving one example, but with two scenarios in terms of two apartments, one one above the other, but the friends, but these fellas who occupy, the families who occupy, these young men grow up together, they're friends, and they play together in an area where they have no choice but to meet and play, because the ground floor and the courtyard is the area where they will want to express their physical and their mental and their ability to speak and to engage with each other. That is common sense. Hines and Rowley and those who are in the Ministry of National Security and this so-called all-of-government approach to dealing with this problem. So the police may want one of the guys that they know, but all of them are lining in the courtyard as they are accustomed doing. The police wants or knows one, and the other person may not be involved in gang or anything of the sort, or the police never had cause to rest their hand on that individual. He stayed straight and narrow, goes to work, come back home, but this fella continues to be his friend because that is how they grew up. Human beings are sociable animals, and they are gregarious, and they therefore live in groups, and therefore in such circumstance, how do you distinguish? How do you, as a police officer, knowing the particular individual who you would like, of course, to question, for example, or might have been in the hands of the police or might have had a matter in court, but this fella who is a friend of the person that the police knows, and they see this fella in the company of that person, the police I'm talking about, and they come to make a raid. They take everybody, including the fella who is innocent and does not engage, but because the fella is his friend and they grew up because he lives just above him in the apartment above, it is obvious that they are going to fraternize. How can the police be able, as human beings, to, of course, distinguish one from the other? And that is where the law has fallen down. Of course, there are other instances, but I just want to point that out for anybody with a modicum of common sense, applying, of course, their God-given sense of reasoning, will see that can't work. It can't work, and therefore too many innocent will, of course, be caught in that dragnet, as we have seen today. It's not all of the people in St. Paul Street are gangsters. It's not all in, of course, Nelson Street are gangsters. It's not all, of course, on Duncan Street and in the Harper and Observatory Street and elsewhere in the country, whether it's in Diego Martin or whether it's in Tonopuna or whether, of course, it is Gun Hill in Point 14. Understand that. And therefore, that is not the solution. And I want to pause one time to say the backside that Rowley is. He's not even conscious. He's not even conscious that his conduct in the way that he operates as an individual and as a prime minister spawns. It spawns. It generates, it causes young people to emulate by his behavior. But I want to tell you something that you may not have observed, but is also critical. Rowley has an annual tournament, not that he's any known golfer. Nobody knows him in the area of golf. That is just a pastime for him. But of course, he seemed to take it seriously, particularly at this time of his life, winding down, so to speak, having already across, of course, 4 scores and 10. But the point I'm making, that every year the Prime Minister has an annual charity golf tournament in his name. I'm talking about Keith Christopher Rowley. He has a golf tournament in his name. But guess what? The money that would have been derived from it, he gives it to the vision and a mission organization. Now, that is all well and good because the money is given to a charity. Nothing wrong with that. But here where, as Prime Minister, he has fallen down and is extremely short-sighted and myopic. Let me show you how. In order for that organization to function, there must be criminals. There must be people who would have been in prison because their role and function is to, of course, rehabilitate prisoners when they would have, or former prisoners when they would have left the system, having been released from having spent, of course, the time as allocated or allotted to them by the courts. You know what I say? I know you, by now you should know where I'm coming from. How the hell the Prime Minister, wanting to address the problem of crime and criminality, will take his charity money and give vision and a mission whose forte, whose raison d'etre, reason for existence, is that there must be, of course, the people leaving prison. So in other words, the Prime Minister is focusing on an organization where people must leave prison in order to benefit. Or put another way, they must go into prison, make time, and then, of course, they will get the benefits. You have to be a backside. I mean, I am tired of calling Dr. Rowley names that he is deserving of. Those adjectives are perfect. Now, if I was the Prime Minister, for example, and I love golf, but golfing love me, but yet still I have the opportunity because of who I am to have a golf charity, and of course I get some money. Well, if it is that you are impressed with the work of vision and a mission, nothing wrong with that. But for someone like me who, as a trained, of course, a criminologist, a teacher, and one actively involved over the years in prophylactic approach to crime and criminality, meaning that prevention. So your common sense must tell you, Rowley, that the minimum you should do is split up the money, give to vision and mission, yes, but also give to a charity that prevents young people from entering the prison system. You jackass. It's your money. Nobody can tell you what to do with it. But if you are Prime Minister, that is not a case where you have a good Samaritan or a charitable arm of a company, and they prefer to give their monies to vision and a mission. Nothing wrong with that. But as Prime Minister, you have to demonstrate at every occasion and at every level and every opportunity that you are balanced and that you are not stupid and that you are not subjected to any kind of criticism as what clearly you must be criticized for at this point in time. You must put some money, even if it's less, to a charity that prevents people from going to prison. Your common sense will tell you that. You don't have to be a rocket scientist or a rock scientist as he is to, of course, understand that, unless, of course, rocks have gone to his brain, literally. Come on. Rowley, you do not demonstrate you do not demonstrate that you are serious about crime and criminality, or you have no idea as to the fire you are playing with and the conflagration that is now spreading throughout Trinidad and Tobago, and of course outside of Trinidad and Tobago, as we continue to be seen as, of course, not only a failing state, but one that is a banana, something like those that we know in Central America and parts of South America in terms of crime and criminality, and of course the marauding gangs. Ecuador, for example, current, Mexico, Venezuela, serious crime problem. And you don't know that as Prime Minister, your charity must also include people who are engaged in activities that prevents the people from going into a life of crime, whether it be people in kindergarten, whether they are engaged in sports, whether they are engaged, of course, in lessons to assist those who may be floundering in their studies. Anything that will, of course, prevent young people from getting involved in crime and criminality. That is your obligation as a Prime Minister. You are not a private citizen. You are not a businessman. You are not, of course, someone outside of the system who can afford to say, but listen, I like vision and a mission, and therefore my money will go there. If you have a charity, as in fact you have, then it means that therefore you must find another charity as well. And I'm sure there are many of them who, of course, will be glad to, of course, get the assistance that money will provide. But what it symbolizes, what it signifies, is that you understand your role and responsibility to prevent young people from entering a life of crime. Why the hell you think you have police youth clubs? What do you think you're that for? What do you think that is for? So I am not concerned with the functionality and the purpose of vision and a mission. I am concerned with the message that Rowley would have sent by, of course, taking all of that, whatever it is, and giving it to that institution that relies on persons going into prison, first of all, making their time and coming out and then looking to rehabilitate. I mean, it is ludicrous, it is nonsensical, and it is asinine. And of course, it demonstrates Dr. Rowley's inability and therefore his being unfit to be Prime Minister. On that basis alone, but there are others. I thought it was important, of course, to treat with that. But as I said, as a measure of treating with the problem, you have, of course, parental responsibility legislation. And I'm going to be brief tonight because I want to package this and send it to the UNC with, of course, the appropriate documents. And as I said, you have that aside. You inside of these communities, these so-called crime hotspots, from Degomate go right to wherever they exist, Central, South, etc. There are people who are doing good work. I just mentioned a few because Laventille is my forte, Laventille is my love, Laventille is my commitment. And if each one of them, like in my case, for example, MLIO had over 300 youths of the type that are giving problems in the secondary schools and all over the country. You couldn't come in MLIO unless you are 15 years and above. And you could not come to MLIO either if you were not, of course, giving trouble or have the potential to give trouble. In other words, if you were engaged in crime and mommy and daddy know that, or the community knows that, or the leader knows that, or the village council people know that, we would, of course, give you a scholarship to come to MLIO. That is the kind of program you're talking about. And inside of there, of course, we then give them, of course, alternatives. and of course, very practical. You see, in the government training programs, you cannot do what we were able to do, and of course, minimize the amount of young people that gravitate to crime. Because, as I said, if we did not do what we were doing or did not do what we did, the situation today would have been worse, especially when you have a Rowley at the helm, a total dunderhead, and one who, of course, is oblivious to what is required. So parental responsibility legislation, support for, you don't have to advertise it. The community knows who are the ones that are working. I could tell you whether it's Morgan, whether in the case of East Port of Spain and Laventille, I can tell you Archbishop Barber, Greyberg, etc. Some well known, some are not known, but they are there working and trying, of course, to keep these young people on the straight and narrow, and of course, maneuvering and as well as gingerly trying, of course, to avoid being harmed, because they too are subjected to harm and danger. They put, of course, their lives on the line to save those young people who, and their parents who are prepared, of course, to make the sacrifice. Every Sunday, I admired Dr. Khalid, for example, in Mova, and of course, Missir and environs, and his efforts, whether he create music classes or he prepare students for CXC or C exam, or indeed direct them, give them a little advice, write a little, of course, recommendation. That is what I do even all now. Provide them with a certificate so that they can go and with the appropriate, of course, guidance, are able, of course, to generate opportunities for themselves. At MLIO, we even had, of course, what is called basic numeracy and literacy program. But, of course, always directed towards the school leaving exam. It still exists. And so they work towards an objective, and generally most of them pass and they feel good about themselves. And then, of course, we have something called rich and rewarding experiences. The government agencies cannot do that. It has to be rested with, of course, those persons who are conscious within the community and who are still respected, so that they can, of course, gingerly maneuver and, of course, take away some of the influence that those criminals and those gang leaders have inside of the community by, of course, they themselves, I have experienced that they themselves direct the young people to a program like that for their own edification and their development. You cannot say that organizations can apply for a grant from the ministry. No! That is obsolete. With modern technology and information sharing and, of course, the immediacy, it's easy to find out who are the shakers and movers and who are the serious people in the community, because what usually happens when the government gives a generic, of course, advertising for groups to come, suddenly all kinds of groups start to come. All kinds of groups, all kinds of people, and it's usually, of course, the people who never was committed into the community, but because there is a financial opportunity, a begging provided by the government, they then, of course, find themselves wherever and criticize others who have been there long before them. And then, of course, the cycle of decadence and the cycle of course, misappropriation and the cycle of mismanagement and the cycle of not being able to achieve the objective continues. Because the objective is to what? To, of course, bring those young people to a realization, a consciousness that they are people too, that they are not second-class and third-class citizens, and that they can, of course, contribute to themselves by, of course, engaging and learning what is being provided by persons who, on their own volition and their own sacrifices, and who are poor themselves, have committed to. Let's go straight to the lines. A pleasant good night.
Hey, good night, Lennox. How you doing? How you doing, brother?
Yes, man, I'm there, man. I'm there, man. Fighting up, man. Fighting up.
Yeah, be myself from I know come home from work. So I was watching the news in Trinidad over there. So where's the PLM? Where's the police plan to deal with the crime? I hear they say the commissioner of police saying you guys have to pray for crime to go down.
And then she unleashed violence on them people and them as if that will stop anything. Unleash violence on them.
Yes. Real craziness going on in Trinidad, Mr. Lennox. Anyway,
Chaos.
I just called to check in, say hello to my people over there. All right, thank you, Mr. Lennox. You have a good night, sir.
Yeah, chaos and mayhem. That is what is happening. That is what they have fuel. They feel that the people are going to resist that. They like that. They expect that. And they are going to harden their hearts. And they are going to make certain that nobody cooperates with the police when you take it in that way. Massive. And of course, as I told you, the way how they want to execute an unexecutable measure in the form of the Anti-Gang Act. Waste of time. And I showed you, of course, what Rowley's problem is in terms of his exemplification. How the hell you go give vision and a mission and not give another group that prevents the people from going to prison? So you're saying by your conduct, go to prison, and that's the only show you will get help. That's what Rowley's saying by that action. And let me tell you this. So we have, of course, a cadre of persons that are working there that they need to go and find them. Find them. And I want to also add to that group of people that are working there, particularly the Baptist community. The Baptist community is intrinsic, is well woven, and therefore in a good position, a beautiful position in those communities to make timely and real-time interventions. Stop giving Serval and the Catholics and the Anglicans the lion's share of the social delivery services and funding, and ignoring, of course, those small nuclear in your face in the community. Timely intervention and empower these entities that are resident right there. At one time, I had cause to be interviewed by, he's dead now, so I don't want to call his name, but on a particular program, a radio program. And I was making the point that how the hell the government could give a subvention to Serval and not MLIO. And hear what the ignorant, lack of knowledge I'm talking about here, interviewer responded, wanted to defend that scenario. I have the same amount of youths as Serval, but the worst kind in terms of behavior and rehabilitation efforts. Worst kind. But Serval getting millions of dollars and I getting none. And I have the same amount of 300 of them. You know what that person turned and tell me? He turned and tell me that the Pantins just walk the streets of Laventille. And that is why they're getting that kind of consideration by the government. Well, I was incensed. I was literally embarrassed for that person. So instead of cussing him on his own program, and therefore I may not get an opportunity again, of course, to share my thoughts with the public, I told him that if Pantin and them walk in the streets of Laventille, well, I just sleep there. You know what I say? I told him that I just sleep in Laventille. Why the Pantin and them might be walking, and when they finish walk, they drive out. But I sleep in Laventille. And why it is that I am doing the same work, if not harder work, if not more dangerous work, and not getting the support of the state. And he had to shut up because he understood where I was coming from. This is about an elitist agenda because the Pantins and they would be, of course, moving with the shakers and movers. I remember on a TV6 program, the present Archbishop of Port of Spain was not yet an Archbishop. And I raised the same point and I made the same response. That how it is that they can get all the support from the government. And the only reason and the only difference between Pantin and they and Lennox Smith and Archbishop Burke and others, Penny, etc., Timothy as well as Morgan, is because they can take up the phone and call Rowley or call, of course, any minister or call any shaker and mover or captain of industry in this country. Whether it's in the banking system, whether it is in industry, whether it is manufacturing, whether it's entertainment, you name it. That is the only difference. But the fact of the matter is that the job has to be done. And if I have 300 and you have 300, it means that therefore you cannot discriminate and say that because they walk Laventille when I sleep in there and doing more work than you but getting nothing and I must do it for free, well, I stop. Look what the problem is now. So they know I am at pains to take that position, but what you want me to do? Work for free, them getting the lesser of the issue or the problem. I'm saying that Serval and they are well covered, and the students that go there are students who most likely will do well because their parents are interested, etc. We had to find ways and means because, as I told you, for that child to enter MLIO, that person had to be concerned, the recommender had to be concerned, whether it's parents, whether it's guardian, etc., had to be satisfied that that person is either engaged or have the potential to engage in crime and criminality. Why? Because we understood that those who are not so inclined, the likelihood that they will walk the straight and narrow and not get themselves in trouble is real. But of course, those who are engaged, those who are in bad company, those who glamorize crime and cause these young people, of course, to be attracted to them because they want to recruit, like the Sixes and the Rasta, and of course the other gangs. We saw it then, and we said we would prevent that. And let me tell you something. Let me tell you all something. When we saw the proliferation of gangs and criminal gangs around 2005, when it started, right in, of course, the Paris Boulevard there, and when fellas were going, of course, in Central, and they go to raid, of course, those fellas who selling cocaine down in that place and trying to rob them. And we've seen, of course, iron rods thrust into the rear of some of or one or two of our residents from Laventille going there and trying to take the people cocaine, and they brutally, not bugger them, you know, but took iron up the backside. Brutal death. We couldn't take it. And the King brothers, most of you would know, the King brothers were largely responsible in about just before 2005, as we observed that development. White's MLIO was, of course, attracting 200 and 300 of those youths and putting them into a training program. We still had that element to contend with outside there, and will not wanted to change in their position because they built in the big house. The leader always had the big house and the nicest car. But of course, his soldiers and his close lieutenants would want the same thing, and bam, something will happen and they kill each other, whether it be Rennie Paul, whether it be, of course, Sean Francis, whether it be the Sandy brothers, and we can go on and on. Can go on and on. We know. We have been there. So what is happening today in terms of a police response is nebulous, and of course, it's deja vu, has been there before. That will not solve the problem. The cycle will continue, and therefore, to generate the permanency, as I said earlier, that you need to identify those elements that are still there, that are fighting up, and focus on them. These people are so stupid. They will continue, of course, to support the criminal element, hoping that they will simmer down, and that that will be temporary. It will be ephemeral. Yeah. And then it flares up again, because that is how they survive. When you should be, of course, finding those elements in the community who are doing good work, or who are training young people as sports elements of sports persons, or educating them, like Dr. Khalid. He is literally, of course, operating inside of Missouri with bare subsistence support. Beer. And then you have the most macabre and the most savage dealing. Like, take for instance, God Christopher. The city man have a computer literacy program and, of course, a homework center. Hines and them, instead, of course, resist anybody in the PNM who try to take away that, or try to, of course, downgrade that. They stood, both he and Leonce, and saw the government mash up that. And today, Hyde's going and talk to the very elements that are creating, of course, all the havoc, the robberies, the killings, each other, as well as bystanders and those who they find and execute as victims of home invasion, robberies, and of course, dispossessing people of that which the people would have worked hard to, of course, develop. I'm talking about business people. That's not waste time. They're wasting my time. That is why I say that the fundamental threat to our country is the PNM. And the first thing to happen with respect, of course, to solving this problem is to get rid of the PNM, and Rowley in particular. Get rid of them. That's the first thing. But there are others, apart from, of course, parental responsibility legislation. Look for those who are doing good work and, of course, focus. The the leadership must be able to demonstrate that they are willing to work and that they do not, of course, have this myopic as well as biased approach and believe that those who are in the upper echelons of the society and that they rub shoulders, of course, with the shakers and movers are the ones to give all the damn money, and then you do not give it to the community and those persons who are interacting on a daily basis with those very elements that still respects the Baptist leader, the mother in the church, and the churches are right there. Where I come from in Passy Street, Laventille, about seven Baptist churches in a radius of about a kilometer. So they are all over. But they're the ones who can make timely and real-time intervention. They can stop a fella from holding a gun by simply being able to say, listen, you want something to eat? You have a job? You want to go and look for a job, but you don't have clothes to go? You don't have a shoes in order, of course, to go to school? That is the role and function of those churches that are right there, and the government doesn't have to spend a cent in terms of physical amenities or physical building in order, of course, to do that, because the churches will use their churches in order, of course, to execute that program. And worse yet, nobody who have a government job in going into those communities and interacting with those persons, like, of course, these people who are there respected and therefore can get into the minds of these people in order to fashion good citizens, law-abiding citizens, and people will turn away from a potential and real life of crime. That's what we're talking about. And just in case you don't understand what I'm saying, let me put up this for you so you get an appreciation as to what I'm talking about. Let me put up this for you first, and then, of course, we will go further. It's a serious business here, man. I told you it's serious business. In order to treat with that problem there many, many decades ago, we had and still have a think tank that has generated a number of survey data and information that is so, what I consider to be irrefutable, that nobody, including government, not only do they not have that kind of information, but they cannot execute that kind of survey simply because nobody in government will come into these communities and say that they find out who is engaged in crime, who is a community leader, except Hines, of course, but only when he wears the coat of, and therefore protected by the police, he goes in there as Minister of National Security. That is not valid. That is not viable. That is stupid. But here you go. I can show you. Let me give the document. Where's the document? Where's the document? Where's the document, man? Somewhere here. Just out of here. Anyhow, that survey that you see there, it deals with the Human Developmental Index and, of course, the socio-economic realities of that place, and a tremendous amount of work has been done. Let me get it, man. Yes, look at there. This is the document here. This is the document here. This is the document here. That's the document that you're seeing in the back of me there. And in it, I'm reading from it. The document is called Laventille Human Development Indicators, Social, Economic, and Cultural Data and Analysis Information. And listen to what the kind of solid and the kind of serious issues that is contained in this document that is available, that is part of the 1,000-page document that I gave to Manning, and I sent it twice for Rowley. Manning, of course, caused me to address the National Security Council when Martin Joseph was the Minister of National Security. But this buffoon, this nincompoop, this criminal, this rapist and pedophile, he ignores twice. And I did it on purpose because I know the day will come just before, of course, 2025 when I could expatiate. And boy, it's a long, hot 12 months. Hot. Listen to some of the topics that were addressed by survey, practical, looking at the community. It includes, of course, a social impact survey on Laventille and environs. And it includes and has studied and looked at number of number of property for sale. We looked at that number of property for sale in Laventille because we saw people running out. But whether they will get sale at all because nobody comes in. As we saw, of course, with people abandoning their shops and their parlors and their groceries and so on and getting the hell out because no delivery van want to come up there. And then they have to go to Port of Spain now and, of course, add more expenditure. And therefore, when they get back into the community, that is sell a soft drink beyond the price that is recommended, even though it's for people who are poor. So you understand why those shops and so on were getting robbed because, of course, they find it unfair, but they were causing, the criminal element were causing, of course, delivery trucks, so whether it be biscuit or whether it be soft drink or whether it be gas or cooking gas or whether it be, of course, sweets, whether it be confectionery. Nobody wants to come and deliver. Even, of course, the electricity representatives, and they have to go there if they come in for the expense for TNTech and WhatsApp because they have to pay police to watchman them, or if they're paving a road. That is the reality. I'm making the point that we saw the problem long time. Look it in the back of you there. And property owners who prefer to sell and leave the area. Reasons for wanting to sell property. Number of professionals residing in the area. Yeah, we did all of that. Well, of course, that fellow who just got his license to practice in the Beatham, that's another one. But it's just about 4 lawyers that reside in Laventille. One died the other day, so it's 3 now, including, of course, this young man from the Beatham. We did all of that. But that is significant, not only for information's sake, but if you are planning and if you are fashioning programs to ameliorate and to improve there, you must know that you have to find the conditions where lawyers and doctors and businessmen will want to come into Laventille in order to live. And once they live and stay there, they will interact when they come on the roadside, whether they're driving or they're walking or otherwise. And they will, of course, be able to say, listen, I have a job down the road for you. And therefore, the availability of jobs and therefore people would no longer want, of course, to rob or to steal because they don't have money. Because in a urban community, in a concrete jungle, you must have money to survive. That's another topic that we will deal with. We studied all of that. Understand? We have, of course, comparison of use and unused recreational grounds. We looked at recreational grounds to, of course, develop athletes. And across, of course, the various sporting disciplines, whether it be football, cricket, as the case may be. Of course, putting 2 swimming pool, does that make a difference? It's a comprehensive program you need, but you need to first analyze the problem, and then you'll be able to prefer the solutions. I'm just making the point because we studied the issues. We know. Where I think we talked about, of course, parental responsibility legislation, not in the way that, of course, drastic as it is in California or in Miami. No. We say that parents must, of course, visit the court when their child would have been brought before the court because of some violent episode. That in itself will cause the parent to monitor that child 24/7 and make sure that it goes the straight and narrow, as they will want to know who the child associates with, what happens on his way to or from school. They will go to the schools and find out what the child is doing and who they're associating with, because they don't want them, of course, to be in a situation where they put themselves having, of course, to go to court at minimum with a sanction. A sanction if they didn't go to court, if the child behaved bad. So they will have a responsibility to prevent that from happening as best they can. So you will certainly see a minimizing of that kind of situation. Again, we have not advocated for food cards. The old hackneyed and well beaten path of handing out hampers is the better project. You go in the community center and people from a particular area, which of course the authorization of the group that is responsible for the distribution. Everybody knows everybody. And therefore the interaction of the community is greater there. How the hell do you go give them a food card and they could go down in a grocery in town or any other place and saying how they're taking the hamper to what? To buy rum. So what prevents a fella from saying that, listen, hold my card, take the whole $500, give me 2 bottles of rum or 1 bottle of rum. You think the grocery owner or the entrepreneur or businessman will deny that temptation? He's a damn fool and saying, but it's more dignified, etc. No, it is not. It is not, Rowley. It is not so, Donna Cox. You need to make certain that the community comes together as they have an opportunity to talk to each other when, of course, the distribution of hampers is at hand. And what will happen, as has happened under the NAR, you would see that they begin to talk to each other, and that one child of a particular parent who would have come there, assembled there for the hamper, would say, listen, you know, John got a job on that construction site down the road there, or farther afield. And the other parent would say, oh gosh, boy, you know how long I want this boy to get a job? You think you could say something for me? That is the kind of camaraderie you will get. That's the kind of interaction you will get. You have taken that away. All the dunderheads. All the dunderheads. And with the support from within of those churches that are intrinsic, that are woven into the community, not the Pentecostal, not the Catholic and so on. They are one churches. I'm talking about serious, real-time, strategically located, and of course people living in the community. That's why they have the churches, and you can still talk to that young man and have the whole community impacting on the life of that young man or young woman. That is what has to happen. So we have that. We're going to do some details later down the road, but I thought I will give you a generic position in terms of the solutions. We have been there. We have done that. And when, of course, the Manning administration asked me to address the National Security Council, coming out of that was the MLI, the Mobile Laventil initiative, that was totally scuttled. And by the time, of course, Kamala and they turned around, they were out of office. But I'm certain that they would have come around to, of course, the realization But let me show you some other things that you would be amazed of. Let me show you, as a result of those direct interventions and those real-time interventions, and as proof of the level of intervention of which I speak, the depth and the permanency in terms of sustainable relief for the whole country. Whole country. This is the letter that was sent to the Prime Minister, but that is the response. And let me just read it, just in case you can't see it properly there. Let me just read it, because it's important that you understand that the community knew the problem and have the solution to the problem. I want you, of course, to advocate and make them know that there are people who know more than them, but they are prepared, of course, to play the ass and not, of course, acknowledge the fact that there are people who know more than them. That letter essentially says that, of course, the 1,000-page document that you said coming from the Prime Minister's office, Manning was the Prime Minister at the time, acknowledging the 1,000-page, 1,000 pages, and that they would be looking into it, and that triggered, of course, that particular exercise of inviting me to address the National Security Council around 2009, thereabout. I don't have a copy of it in front of me and I can't see it well on the screen. But you will have a chance to look at it. I will try to read it tomorrow. But more than that, it's not just that, more than that. More than that. Apart from that, I showed you yesterday a letter from the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Tasha. Well, today I told you I will show you a letter from the University of Washington, where I went to lecture on the question of Laventille in particular, but of course assisted in the law and community department and that faculty headed by Professor Bennett, who came here and assisted the government in terms of modeling, because he's a specialist, of course, in police administration. And he sent a letter to the then Prime Minister. Sorry, I ain't seen it to read it. I thought I had it on screen, so I would have normally have it on screen. I'm not seeing it. But of course, we'll have it. I'll read it tomorrow as well. But it says essentially that it is programs like MLIO that, of course, because it is prophylactic in nature, it is preventive in nature, will make the difference in terms of addressing crime on a sustainable basis. That is what the man said, and he sent that to Manning, and they sent it to Manning. And as I said, in the 1,000-page document that I sent to Rowley at the beginning of his term in 2015 and at the ending of it in 2020, I sent a copy twice, and he by of course mail, by courier, by TT Post courier, and did not get an acknowledgement. And today, no one must feel sorry for Rowley and they for what they have done to the people. All of this could have been prevented if they had only not to be so damn self-centered, egotistic. They know it all. They are omniscient. They know it all. And it turned out to be a total disaster for dada heads. Yes, that letter sent it to the Prime Minister then, saying that programs like what we had homegrown, developed for the area are the programs that are needed. But no, they want their own people and they want to know who Lennox Smith supporting, as if that could help Trinidad and Tobago in terms of the explosion that could have, and incrementally the pressure built up. And today Rowley is getting everything because he is the person majorly that has built up that pressure, and now of course it's been unleashed on all of us. No one can escape. No one. So there you have it. I'm going to read it tomorrow. But that's not all. I told you there were other agencies that were invited into Laventille and East Port of Spain. Not just the British High Commissioner visited and walked George Street and Nelson Street and so on, but also the Indian High Commissioner. Yes. And we were making arrangement for the predecessor ambassador, the one who has his roots in Trinidad. But of course, Trump came and spoiled the whole thing, and therefore, but that is still to be ironed out, as they would come and look at the situation so that we can assist in reducing, of course, the advisories against Trinidad and Tobago, nurtured, and of course, the basis of which relies on the conduct of the people in East Port of Spain, Laventille, and etc., etc. The private Trinidad and Tobago of all kinds of investment. Yes, indeed. Let us go straight, of course. Let me show you, coming out of the Indian High Commissioner's visit and interaction, we set up a scholarship arrangement for 2 persons every year. Every year. To go to India free of charge at the expense of the Indian government. Let me give you the certificate of the first person who benefited from that free of charge at courtesy of the Indian government. That is the level of which we are talking about, people. Not this jokey thing that Rowley and them on. All of government approach my ass. Look, there it is. As I said, I cannot see on the screen, but I'll read it for you tomorrow as well. I'll bring it back again tomorrow. And you will see to the bottom where he went and studied entrepreneurial development. It was strategic. So he in turn will teach others to become entrepreneurs. And he himself is, of course, an accomplished entrepreneur right on George Street, right now. Right now. And spreading the message to others so that they could emulate. As we light one fire, we expect to light several, and a conflagration of attitudinal change would take place. Not like Rowley, who wants, of course, to do what? To support vision and a mission, and you had to be a criminal and make jail before you get any assistance. That ass. That ass. And to prove it, of course, we have a picture of Gabriel Dada, the first, of course, beneficiary of that project. Why she was, of course, at the institute. We put an arrow to show you where he is with other persons from every continent on the earth, from the United States, from Africa, from Asia. Look them there, meeting in India. We were able to bring the Indian High Commissioner into Laventille and, of course, East Port of Spain. And we were able, of course, to benefit from a generous program offered by the Indian government free of charge to develop our young people so that they can now have the multiplier effect and influence everybody. There's where we are going. That is a sustainable preventive action I'm talking about, not this jokey thing that Rowley and them come up with and believe that somehow that the police could solve the problem. That is not a police problem. The police is there, of course, to enforce where there's an infringement, but they can't police everybody. It is a multifaceted, multidimensional program, or should I say problem, that requires, of course, a multifaceted, multi-directional and multi, of course, dimensional inputs. Not just a all of government approach. We have looked at that as well. But the all of government approach is where, of course, as we have stated, with respect, of course, to generating a program where genuine community leaders would sit in their homes, just as the churches, and move through the community. And who wants, of course, to do a training program, they are given the power to facilitate that. They want a job, whether it's true, of course, the national apprenticeship program, they must get the power to do that. And we have, of course, a central place, a clearinghouse, where all these things will come together, and, of course, you prioritize, and you, of course, in quick time, deliver. That's what you do. You keep these young people busy and busy and busy and busy. And you have the parents bazony, even though, of course, they may not understand. The latest, of course, when we looked at the situation with respect to borderline, and, of course, the fragmentation due to gang warfare, we know that we have to find resources in order to go into the community. Go into the community and treat with the person who wants to get pension and can't read and write. You have to do it for them. You're going there because they can't come out. Let's get to the lines. Let's get to the lines. Professor, good night. Welcome. I thought it was all organized listening tonight. But go ahead. Professor, good night.
Good night, Lennox. I was listening to you tonight.
Speak a little louder.
You said, yeah, I was listening to you tonight. You said some stuff about vision and mission that got my attention, you know. You know a lot about vision and mission, don't you?
Yes, of course. Look.
So I used to listen to Wayne Chance. Yeah, I used to listen to Wayne Chance every Sunday morning.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to listen to. Yeah.
When he came out of prison, he sought my advice. And some others, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I used to listen to Wayne Chance all the time on Sunday, every Sunday morning, right? And I used to call the show, it was I-95. I've banned me on the show, I don't call anymore. And some other shows too. But Wayne Chance had a really good history. He was talking about why he came to jail. So I realized something. I don't know if he's having much of an impact. I don't know if Vision and Mission is really doing their job, because it sounds like a very well-funded nonprofit, but they don't really care much about the impact that they're really having with the prison system. And now Wayne Chance says, well, his wife never used to be part of it really, and now she's got this big job in there, and you know they're funded by the United States now. They got a big grant from them. So I don't know. Maybe these are just little handouts, but. You were talking earlier too about Serval, and Serval, I've been to Serval with one of my neighbors. We took her son there, and I feel like we went to the one up there near the beach actually. And when we got there, we went inside and everything, and I'll tell you something. It's a sad situation of a building. You go in there, and it's very paltry looking, broken down, kind of sad. That's from what I saw. And to be in that area, to be with parents who are despondent and they're searching for a program for their kids, the environment itself was not uplifting. And then you meet the staff, and they were like downright tired. They didn't care anymore. That's the impression I got. And most of these kids were going to end up working at Nestle factory anyway. All the factories, that's where they were pushing the kids to work. And they were just telling them, you just get your foot in the door. Once you get the job, that's it. And it was almost like they were just trying to shuffle these kids, get them on the job, and that was it. But I don't know. I think a lot what you're saying did make sense, and I feel like a good, strong entrepreneurial program that helps people start up with good funding would work. But like you said, this government is just doing things randomly. If they're not doing anything with meaning, where you have good tracking records and you're following your progress reports, they're not into that. Quick money, flip it over, move on to the next one. That's it. That's how I see it. Eh? All right, I'm listening, Lennox. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And I'm glad that you touched that question of funding, because we did look at that question as well for the very ignored entities that develop from the bowels of the community by people who themselves are poor, but because of their commitment and their dedication and their attachment and their navel string tied to the community, they have a passionate concern and a passionate desire to, of course, uplift the community, because they would have had some advantage, whether it be by education or by some other skill. And I want to tell you, and if the UNC give me the chance, it will be damn well implemented. You see, we had identified, of course, the East Port of Spain Development Company for a specific function. And the technology, the Lavendale Technology and Continuing Education Center, as it eventually became to be known, the only contribution that Heinz made to it, but that was my idea. The East Port of Spain Development Company, of which I was the vice chairman up to the time when, of course, the UNC demitted office. But they were set in their ways. And when I thought I'd be able, of course, to give of my experience and to, of course, think outside the box and to, of course, engage and step into a new brand of sustainable development, I was met with stiff resistance, because a PNM culture was settled in there, and the CEO vested with the power to, whether we like it or not as a board, to resist the traditional approach to dealing with the issue of Lavendale and so, because it is the only state enterprise or entity dedicated to a community, the East Port of Spain Development Company. Yeah, check it out and you will see. And it was because of my advocacy, among others, to the special circumstance of Lavendale, not the glib talk like Rowley. Rowley went up to Beetham and said the same thing. He said that is a special place with special problem and needs a special attention. And of course, things like what transpired today, people were raiding Beetham, just as how they raid, of course, St. Paul Street and elsewhere, and they will be going all through that again, like deja vu, and of course, going through like people who, of course, are doing the same thing all over and over and expect a different result. A pile of asses. Understand that? So when I went there, all in truth, and said, well, we got to change the dynamics, because why the hell you're focusing on steps, the construction of steps, and of course, pavement and basketball court and etc., etc. Why that has its place? But of course, the Ministry of Sports is there, the Ministry of Works is there to deal with rehabilitation of roads and drains and so on. And of course, the kind of money that would have been allocated to the East Port Development Company, it would be a miracle to be able, of course, to address in any significant way the infrastructural needs of the area. And in fact, one can say that the infrastructural needs are minuscule compared, of course, to the social and the people and the attitudinal and the intellectual and the knowledge and the education based, so that you can get the transformation, because you could be in an ugly environment, but if you have the prowess of positive thought, you can envision and you can generate conduct and action that will transform that place into a paradise. Into a paradise, because that is human vision, that is human nature. So what you do, you had this plethora of institutions run by people who themselves are poor, but they are engaged in sports, they are engaged in kindergarten training, they are engaged, of course, in computer literacy, they are engaged, of course, in school homework centers, and you can go on, including music, etc. So what do? The only difference is funding. So I had proposed, and I will damn well, that is why I will be sending my recommendations, of course, to the UNC, because I don't want to be left out this time around at all. Not left out here, meaning that these sustainable programs must be implemented because they are out of the box and they are different and they are, of course, for the times. So what you do, if you have a cadre of persons who are doing wonderful work, who, of course, by the 3s and the 4 and the 10s and the 5s and the 6 and the 50s, it's only I, as a community leader, as a community activist, was able to bring into one place 300 of those youths. But of course, the smaller programs, maybe 5, 10, 15, 20, that kind of thing. But what you do, you provide them with the main ingredients that will cause them, of course, not only to be more efficacious and will increase their numbers, but they will be able, of course, to speed up, to accelerate the transformation that is required and the attitudinal change that is imperative in order, of course, to solve all of the problems, including that of crime and criminality and the gravitation thereto. What do? So I told them, I said, what do? If you have 20 such organizations, then why not put them on a cycle of funding, let's say $100,000. You give each one of them on a cyclical basis $100,000 and you rotate it. And your job now as the East Monastery Development Company will be monitoring these institutions to make sure that they deliver, because you cannot do it, one, and you do not have the resource to do it, human or otherwise. So that small investment will certainly be multiplied as these people would now expand their programs, they're expected so to do, and with the correct monitoring mechanism, and of course with the accountability and of course the transparency mechanisms built into, including of course putting your own people on the boards, etc., once they are prepared to accommodate, so that you can monitor and make certain, of course, that the human capacity delivery or the human capacity development is so extraordinarily not just intense, but of course generated with a high degree of alacrity and speed, that in no time you can of course transform that place. That's all that is required. All of those, whether it's Archbishop Burke, whether it be Penny, whether it be, of course, Timothy and others along the East-West corridor from Diego Martin, go right back, of course, to Arima, La Hoqueta, etc. It's different, of course, to live sports. I want to say live sports didn't get the benefit of our experience. Otherwise, and Roberts would not have found himself in that situation, but because they experimented. There is no need to experiment. There is no need to reinvent the wheel. So we could have told them, but they didn't listen. It's on the late part. And Roberts called me, of course, to have me, of course, lecture to the various entities. I wasn't even able to make the first lecture when, of course, the program closed down because of what we know today. But if they had consulted with people like myself, who they know has been giving all of my adult life, except, of course, studies and so on, interrupting, and even in such circumstance, I would leave people who were well-trained to manage, they would have been able, of course, to be the beneficiary then, and as Rowley and them would have been today. But instead, no, they leave it to their own devices because they are simply arrogant, contemptuous, and of course believe that somehow they can just wish away, talk away the problems of these communities. So what I said is that you do it on a cyclical basis, $100,000 for each. One group, of course, that first 10 will account for that monies at the end of that year, and then of course you bring on the next 10 depending on the availability of funds, and you can increase it as the case may be. And those who did well, of course you give them an extra award or reward in order, of course, to make certain that the area is sedated and that they feel a sense of belonging. That is what you do. There's sufficient infrastructure and institutions to deal with that. What is required in these areas are the financial resources. And let me tell you this. There is a philosophical position. There is a philosophical position. And it is nestled, of course, in sociology, psychology, and criminology. Something called psychological and social capital. Yes, indeed. Social and psychological capital. What is that? It is the investment that a society makes. Let me repeat. Social and psychological capital is the investment a society makes. I'm talking about physical investment. I'm talking about money. I'm talking about human resource. I'm talking about processes. I'm talking about material. Social and psychological capital is the investment that a society makes to keep the peace. To keep the peace. To keep the peace. And God knows we need a peace to keep now. But because they were not and believe that somehow the nonsense that they have tried, deprivation, gentrification, and they have proliferated the problem across the country by, of course, displacing people in East Port of Spain, for example, to go any part of the country. You making joke. You making joke. That's a poor and a debilitating and horrendous policy that has contributed to the widespread and the difficulty. They could bring 1,000 more police. They could bring 100,000 more police. They can't stop that unless you have and understand the socio-economic and psycho-cultural dynamics and operations of the people that you are attempting to address. As I was saying before the call, when we saw the issue of borderline and, of course, gang warfare, but there are people who will grow old in those communities. There are people who will not engage in crime and criminality and gang in those communities. But because they have to go out of the community in order to get food, for example, or to work, depending on where you are located, you have to make the rounds. You have to go through tracks. Otherwise, if you only venture, like for example, you have, of course, North and South Nelson Street. That's the classic example. North and South Nelson Street, the dividing line is Prince Street. Prince Street. And guess what? Everybody know that it's just a stone's throw. It's just a stroll. But everybody in the south of Prince Street and the north of Prince Street know that they must not enter into each other's territory. You could die. You could get killed. You could be shot. Understand that? So we know and we understand. And so it's clear that if they can't come out, we have to go in. But the government can't go in. Anybody from social welfare, taking the task of going into Laventille, whether they had an association with that place or not. No. So what you do? People like me who still have the confidence of the people are the same young boys and them that I will go up in St. Barb's and sit down on the block, buy a couple of beers and line with them. Or I will go on Prince Street and them fellas who live in Nelson Street and George Street and the immediate environment will come across and shake my hand and we will dance together and so on. Yes. Yes. There are people who still, they respect, understand that, and will do them no harm. But more importantly, a valuable human resource, because you could still talk to them and tell them, but you want me to go with my empty hand? Every time I go on Prince Street, I probably have to buy a case of beer. But I drink in just about 4 or 5. The rest is for the people who give me a beer, or look up beer as the case may be. You have to understand that. I go on the Beatham, I go on Sealats. Two Saturdays ago, my car break down near Sealats. And when my wife and them think, I send them a police pull up, and I send them, of course, with the police car, send them, of course, home in the police car, and I stayed to wait until the engine cool out. And instead of staying there, I gone inside Sealats, buy a cup of beer, buy one, buy another beer, buy the next one. And Bram, one time, I met up, of course, a former student of MLIO, and we sat there for almost 3 hours talking about the situation, both there and, of course, in the nation. Which one of you doing that? Which one of you could do it? Rowley? Stuart Young? Hines? When Hines was dismissed by Rowley, by Manning, he sheepishly sneaking into Bad Street. Understand, he has a sister there to launder his clothes. No high profile. But now that he has the security apparatus to protect him, he going in there and playing big bad wolf. Let him lose that work, and you won't see him again. Lennox Smith always there. Lennox Smith always there. That's why I could talk with authority. And I could tell you, oh, he's a blasted rapist and a pedophile. Can't do me nothing. Because that is what you are. That is what you are. And you're a failure. The entire government. Entire government, people. So that is the part of the history. I ain't finished yet. Tomorrow night we will go again. I'll read some of the issues for you. And I'll try to put up some of the documents. 1,000 pages that will find its way to the UNC. The transformation is here. The ability is rife. The commitment is true. And the solution is possible. Not like Rowley and them give up. And give up they should. Because there are no damn exemplars for anybody to follow. That is what. Ask any one of them if they ever got a fellow from Laventille to get a free scholarship to go anywhere. Far less to go India. Every day Dada has called me, even after his exercise and his experience. And he made friends. He networked with others from different parts of the globe. So he can go on holiday in Europe. He could go on a holiday being invited to South Africa. He could go on a holiday and, of course, bring back some of the experiences and bring some of these people back there. When Basio Pandey had asked me to be a temporary senator in the Senate, the first occasion, I expected to get another stint. It didn't come. But I had already decided, since the Parliament is just across the street from Prince Street. Yeah, Prince Street empties into, of course, the eastern side of Woodford Square. So my plan was to ask the entire Senate to come across a stone's throw and see how people really live in these places and why it is that the problem, as it is escalating and has been escalating, must be, and that there are solutions. That is why we brought those ambassadors. Now we know that we can do it if we try. We can do it if we try. And that has been the motto of the MLIO, and of course efforts to address the problem in that area. This is no joking matter. It must be a long, hot 12 months for the PNM and Rowley for the betrayal and the perfidious and the macabre and the dangerous place that they have put Trinidad and Tobago. Put Trinidad and Tobago.
Hey, Lennox, after some good night. I think your audio mute a little, so you want to check it and see your board.
Oh, yes.
But Lennox,
Yeah.
I want to talk to you after your program.
Okay.
About the situation. I ain't if you could assist me with, but after the program. Now.
Okay, no problem. Thank you very much for that call. Yes, I was making the point. We can make it if we try. And just in case you didn't get it, I say that there is something called social and psychological capital. And that is the price that the investment that the society must make to maintain the peace. And there are those who are committed, dedicated. And it's not about us, maybe, I'm sure 2/3 of the talk in the UNC forum will be people who say should be and must be and could be. I say we have done it and we just have to tweak and execute because we know the executional mechanisms because we have been there and we did it. Yes, people, and we can make it if we try. Sorry about the loss in audio temporarily. We can make it if we try.
So the treasury broke and they say that reset and jamming. So to foreign countries really start migrating. They lose faith in the country, they say we gone down the drain. They say no more could we see.
Yes indeed, people. The will to recover, and we can make it if we try. All we need to do is to think. But those who have the experience and the ability and the commitment to treat with this problem that appears to be intractable for the PNM, obviously, because they are part of the problem, they must be got rid of. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. See you tomorrow on the Ground Report. Andy, Mikey, and myself. Andy is a bit saboteur these days. But of course, newbie, Mikey and myself. Of course, Andy will be listening. Have a wonderful rest of the night. God bless. And see you tomorrow night as we continue to show solutions.
From the time we analyze just what was the problem. Yes, we start making very positive moves to solve them. We fired the old set of managers we had working. And it's a new group we went and we bring in. And if the goods we require them new managers not supplying. When the election time come back wrong, it's new ones we bring in. But if it's one thing about my people, I could guarantee that they would never ever put party before country. And now the country facing is dark, is sour, and our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, you have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life would be much sweeter. The treasury was full and happy time some was enjoying. It's in mover and laugh until poor people was living. Now the treasury flat and the country come back to square one. Poor people remain on the same old ghetto injunction. But to get the economy return today on some footing, if the same poor people 10 days and cola they're taking. And without social unrest, poor people paying the price. Because they know for the country, nothing too much to sacrifice. And if the country facing is dark, is sour, so our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever you feel to surrender, you have one little thing that I want you always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life would be much sweeter. Anytime that we hear Trinbago is facing a crisis, as loyal citizens it's our duty to stay and assist. For we know to ourselves there could never become a day we're not deaf to this country we can't repay. So who want to go, I have no objection. But while outside I want you to have some consideration.
that your country of ours facing its worst day in history, and we must do what we can, regardless where we may be. Our country facing its darkest hour, and our people need us today more than ever. But in our fight to recover, if ever we feel to surrender, it have one little thing that I want we always remember. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life could be much sweeter. We could make it if we try, just a little harder. If we just give one more try, life could be much sweeter. We could make it if we try, just a little harder now, a little harder. One more try, sweeter, baby, sweeter.